Welcome back. Today we're diving into an explainer on something literally every single developer building modern web interfaces has to grapple with at some point, and that is styling fatigue. If you spent any time at all in the React ecosystem, you already know that the sheer volume of styling options out there can be, well, completely overwhelming. So we're going to explore a really fascinating taxonomy that maps out the complete architecture of React styling. Rather than just tossing a bunch of random tools at you, this breakdown organizes everything into a clear structural hierarchy. We're going to unpack not just what these tools are, but exactly why they exist in the first place, and the specific problems they solve for developers like us.
So it really is the ultimate question, right? With so many distinct paths available, which architecture do you actually commit to for your next project? And this isn't just a matter of aesthetics or what looks pretty, it's a fundamental architectural decision. Making the wrong choice early on can lead to massive technical debt later, slowing down your team's velocity and making simple redesigns incredibly painful. Whether you're just spinning up a quick prototype, building an internal dashboard, or architecting some massive enterprise application that needs to scale for millions of users, the styling foundation you choose dictates your entire developer experience. So let's find out exactly where your current toolkit fits into this broader picture.
All right, here is our roadmap for today. Number 1, traditional CSS and preprocessors. Number 2, the CSS in JS movement. Number 3, utility first with Tailwind. Number 4, ready-made UI libraries. And finally, number 5, selecting your styling path. Let's jump right in.
Section 1. Traditional CSS and preprocessors. When we talk about traditional CSS and preprocessors, we are looking at the absolute bedrock of web styling. This pathway relies on standard external CSS files and native browser capabilities. Now you might be wondering, why is this foundational category still so relevant today, especially in an era of super complex JavaScript frameworks? Well, it's simple. Zero runtime overhead. You're shipping pure, heavily optimized style sheets straight to the browser. This approach leans completely on native browser APIs, which means you get incredible caching benefits right out of the box. For teams that have deep, specialized CSS expertise and want absolute control over the cascade and performance, this traditional route is still an incredibly potent choice.
Let's dig a little deeper into this foundational category. We've got 3 primary variations here, and each one solves a very specific problem. First up, you have standard global CSS. It's simple, universally understood, but actually, in a large application, global namespace collisions become a total nightmare. And that is exactly where the second option, CSS modules, steps in to save the day. CSS modules take your standard CSS and automatically scope it locally to the specific component you're working on. Boom, no more fear of class name collisions across your app. Finally, we have Sass, or SCSS. This brings powerful programming logic directly into your style sheets. If you need complex loops, robust variables, or deeply nested selectors before your CSS is even compiled, Sass is the absolute workhorse that makes traditional CSS scale for enterprise teams.
But here's where things get really interesting. As web applications evolved into these massive, state-heavy single-page applications, managing thousands of external style sheet classes, even with preprocessors, became a serious bottleneck. Developers were just constantly context-switching between JavaScript files containing the logic and CSS files containing the presentation. The traditional cascade was constantly fighting against the isolated, component-based architecture of React. And this fundamental friction? It created a sharp fork in the ecosystem, the CSS in JS movement. Instead of keeping styles isolated in a separate file, the community started asking a really provocative question. What if we couple the styling directly with the JavaScript components themselves?
Section 2. The CSS in JS movement.
This huge paradigm shift brings us to the 2 undeniable titans of the CSS and JS space, styled components and emotion. The big aha moment here isn't just that you're writing CSS inside JavaScript files. It's about what that tight coupling actually unlocks for you. By keeping your styles in JS, you gain the superpower to pass React props directly into your styling logic. Want a button to instantly turn red if an error state is active? You don't need to conditionally toggle a bunch of class names anymore. You literally just pass the state variable right into the styled component. Both styled components and emotion offer true scoped encapsulation and dynamic styling powered by your application state. It's an absolute game changer for developers who want their logic and visual presentation tightly unified.
Section 3, utility first with Tailwind.
Now we arrive at a completely unique, highly polarizing, yet wildly popular paradigm, utility-first styling with Tailwind CSS. Tailwind is it's entirely its own beast. When a lot of developers first encounter Tailwind, there's this common initial shock. Seeing a pristine React component suddenly stuffed with dozens of utility classes like Flex, PT-4, and Text Center, well, it can kind of feel like a massive step backward into inline styling. But the magic really happens once you fully adopt it. Tailwind completely eliminates context switching. You never have to leave your JSX file to write a style, and you absolutely never have to invent a semantic class name like card container outer wrapper ever again. The result? Unparalleled iteration speed and a highly consistent design system that guarantees your CSS bundle size practically stops growing, no matter how huge your application gets.
Section 4. Ready-made UI libraries.
You know, sometimes writing any custom CSS at all is just the wrong move. And that brings us to ready-made UI libraries. This approach gives you comprehensive collections of pre-built, fully functional components. We're talking date pickers, complex modal windows, accessible dropdowns, all ready to go right out of the box. The core strategy here is prioritizing rapid development over having a hyper-custom brand identity. If you're building an internal admin dashboard, some heavy B2B enterprise tool, or you're just desperately trying to ship an MVP by Friday, spending 3 days perfecting the border radius on a button is a huge waste of resources. UI libraries let your engineering team focus entirely on the business logic and data flow while outsourcing the UI layer to a tested, reliable standard.
The heavy hitters in this space offer really distinct flavors depending on exactly what your project needs. Material UI brings that massive, heavily documented Google ecosystem directly into your app. It's incredibly robust and practically comprehensive. Then you have Ant Design, which is basically the gold standard for data-heavy enterprise applications. It offers some of the most powerful out-of-the-box data tables and forms you will find anywhere in the React ecosystem. On the flip side, Chakra UI focuses heavily on developer ergonomics and accessibility. It provides highly composable, flexible components that are super easy to customize if you do eventually need to bend the design slightly towards your own brand guidelines. Section 5. Selecting your styling path. Okay, we have covered a massive amount of architectural ground in this explainer. So how do you actually synthesize all of this and choose the right path? Well, it really boils down to your team's composition and the ultimate goal of the product. If your team is heavily weighted with traditional web designers who think in cascading style sheets, definitely lean towards CSS modules or Sass. If your engineers prioritize absolute component isolation and love manipulating styles directly through React State, that CSS and JS route with emotion or styled components is for sure your best bet. If your main goal is maximum iteration speed without ever leaving the component file, you've got to embrace Tailwind. And finally, if you need functional, complex interfaces shipped at lightning speed without stressing over bespoke branding, just grab a UI library like Chakra or Material UI.
The beautiful thing about the React ecosystem is that there is absolutely no silver bullet. There is no objectively perfect tool out there. There is only the right tool for your specific team skills and your product's scale. Understanding this taxonomy means you aren't just guessing anymore. You're making a calculated, informed engineering decision. So I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. Given everything we've unpacked today about the trade-offs, the speed, and the architectural differences, which path will your next project rely on to scale? Keep learning, keep building, and I will catch you on the next explainer.